Remember that you were at that time without Christ, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel and strangers to the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. But now, in Christ Jesus, you who were once far off have been brought near by the blood of Christ. Ephesians chapter 2, verses 12 and 13. So this is my 2009 Chevy Cobalt, and I've noticed that there's a squeaking noise coming from the rear brakes every time they're applied, pretty much. And it's not so much when you're driving and coming to a stop, but it's more just like a squeak noise that is there when you let off the brakes. So I'm going to try to see what that is. Do it again. Again. So that was the noise. It seems to be coming from inside the brake drum there. Unfortunately, my brake drum is not coming off, so I'm going to have to pound on it a little bit. We'll come back and tell you how I was able to get it off. Okay, so what I did to get it loose was I took my little torch here and I put the heat right on those witness marks from the rim. Just went around and around and heated, and then I took my 4-pound sledge and just hit around the perimeter of it like that, and eventually it just started moving around. So alright, so this is what the rear brakes look like with the drum off. And I did notice that there's the brake pad, I don't know how thick it was to begin with, but it's definitely a little thicker there on the end than it is in the middle, and it's even worse on the front side. So you can see it's a little thicker there, and kind of goes almost down to nothing there in the middle, and then it's a little bit more, but not as much on the front. So probably not going to be able to go a whole lot longer on these brake shoes here. So anyway, but I noticed that when I took that off and put it back on again, it doesn't squeak anymore. So at least I've fixed the squeak temporarily. The other piece of this is obviously the inside wear surface of the drums, but looks pretty good all around there. It's even wear pattern and no pitting or anything. So I'm gonna put this back on for now and call it good. Alright, so this is just this video is just for a few tips on changing the rear brake shoes on the rear of a 2009 Chevy Cobalt. So disassembling the rear brakes. First thing I'm going to do is remove this spring right here. I'm going to push this end of it out back through that hole. And I'm going to use this tool right here, this end of it, pushing on that spring. So you can see I've got that part way back in there, and then I'll just take a little pair of pliers and push it the rest of the way through. Next I'm going to remove this spring over here, which I installed upside down, which is part of the reason I'm taking this apart. Plus I'm going to replace the hardware. But that should be on the other way. And so what I'm going to use for that is this little pair of pliers. It seems like because there's a shorter distance between here and here than on my longer set of needle nose pliers, it seems to grab the spring better. Okay, next I'm going to hold that retention pin with the needle nose pliers and put the other pliers here on that. And while I'm pushing down on the spring with these pliers, then I'll be twisting with the needle nose pliers so that that pin will come loose. Okay, so that is out. So now this piece just comes off like that. Next I will remove that spring. Okay, so this spring just comes out like that. And next I will do the same thing to this to let this other shoe come loose. So this is the new hardware that I've got to put on, and this rubber piece here goes in like that, right there. That piece goes right there. And that's just a little rubber piece that pushes right out, like so. Okay, there's the hole. And I'll just put this new one in from the back side, like that. Alright, so this may or may not be helpful, but in order to help me get this spring in, I had to get that in there before I put this on, because it's hard to get it on afterwards, it seems. So anyway, I used one of the smaller springs that I'm replacing to hold it right there, to keep that spring in place while I was trying to hold that in place to get it going. And so hopefully I can get the rest of it on without, dropping that off again. Okay, I've tried several different ways to put this thing on. This one is going to be, I've got, so I put the spring on back there first, and then I made sure that this piece, the adjustment bar here, was in place in the right thing. But what I had to do in order to get this lower one on there was to have it loose from its retainer back here, so it's in front of the retainer now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this piece and then just push on this piece to try to get it around the back side of that retainer. And so I don't have this one nailed down up here, but I got nailed down back here. So we'll see if I'm successful at getting this to work. Okay, so that seemed to work fairly well. So what I did was I just put my brake tool on this corner right there, and put my other hand up on the brake pad and just pushed that way, and then it allowed that lower end to get around the backside of the lower retainer there. And so now all my springs, or at least the upper and lower one, are in place. I still have to put the one over here that retains the adjuster lever, but looks like we're almost there. Okay, so I got that one on there. It's the lightest spring of the whole bunch, so it was easier. And so now I'm just going to have to adjust these things around a little bit and put the rear spring retainer on the rear, or the front shoe there. And we should be ready to put the drum back on.